Dear learners, welcome back to WSE Legendary Lives, where learning English opens the doors to ancient wisdom and timeless tales. Today, let your imagination awaken and your heart lean close, as we journey into the myth of a goddess unlike any other, a being born not from the earth or womb, but from the mind of a god. Her name is whispered across marble temples, etched into the blades of warriors, and honored in the hearts of philosophers. She is Athena, the radiant flame of wisdom and war, the protector of cities and weaver of strategy. But this is not just the tale of a goddess clad in armor. It is the story of intellect struggling against impulse, of vision triumphing over violence, and of balance emerging from chaos. For Athena, with her piercing gaze and unyielding calm, was more than a warrior, she was a symbol. A force that teaches us that true power lies not in domination, but in clarity, discipline, and insight. As you listen, you will not only sharpen your English, but awaken the timeless questions that live inside us all. What is wisdom? How should strength be used? And when is silence more powerful than shouting? Prepare to enter a world where thoughts become life, and where even gods must wrestle with truth. Let the legend begin. Long before the goddess Athena stood tall atop the Parthenon, long before mortals carved her likeness into marble or called upon her name in battle and in law, the seeds of her story were sown in the sacred chaos of early Greek mythology. The world then was still young, raw, wild, and ruled by titanic forces. The Olympian gods, led by Zeus, had only just secured their reign over the cosmos, overthrowing the ancient titans in a war that tore the heavens apart. It was a time of thunder, transformation, and primal fear, where gods themselves were unsure of what the future might bring. Zeus, king of the gods, was both admired and feared. His will shaped the skies, but his heart harbored storms of its own. As ruler, he longed for an heir who would not threaten his throne as he had once threatened his own father, Cronus. He had heard prophecies, dark whispers from Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, that a child born to him and the Titaness Métis would one day surpass him. Métis, whose name meant cunning intelligence, was not only beautiful, but the wisest of all beings. To prevent this threat, Zeus made a fateful decision. He tricked Métis with soft words, drew her near, and swallowed her whole. But what Zeus tried to destroy, he only planted deeper. For Métis did not perish inside him. She lived on, not in body, but in essence, and within Zeus's mind, she began to create. And what she created was not destruction or rebellion, but a daughter, radiant, armored, and wise. The moment of Athena's birth would become one of the most astonishing scenes in all of mythology. One day, Zeus was seized by unbearable agony, a splitting pain that echoed through the vault of Olympus. None could soothe him. In desperation, he called for Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, to strike his head with an axe. And from Zeus's skull, in a burst of brilliant light, sprang Athena, fully grown, dressed in gleaming armor, and holding a spear. She let out a cry so mighty that it shook the earth and sky. She was no ordinary child. Born of thought rather than flesh, she represented the union of divine will and infinite reason. Her birth was not a beginning, but a statement, a declaration that intelligence and strategy were now as divine as thunder and flame. Among the other gods, all rippled like lightning. She was accepted not only as a daughter of Zeus, but as his equal in wisdom. No goddess had ever been born like this. No goddess would rule like her. But for Athena, being born of the mind would be both a blessing and a burden. For how does one reconcile wisdom with power? How does a child of reason survive in a world of passion, war, and pride? And so, the mind-born goddess descended into a world already divided. Her tests had only just begun. Athena may have been born in full armor, but no steel could protect her from the tension woven into her very nature. She was a goddess of war, yes, but not of rage, bloodlust, or chaos like Ares, her half-brother. Ares stormed into battle with raw fury and blind instinct. Athena, by contrast, chose her fights with the precision of a chess master. To her, war was not a thirst but a last resort, a strategy, a means to protect justice when reason failed. But this clear vision placed her in conflict, not only with other gods, but with the very nature of Olympus itself. Even among immortals, Athena was different. She did not seek lovers or indulge in romantic whims. She took no consorts, bore no children. To the gods, this seemed unnatural, to the mortals, even threatening. Was a woman without desire still a woman? Was a goddess without passion still divine? But Athena did not bend to these expectations. She carved a space for herself that no other goddess dared claim, a life devoted not to seduction or submission, but to logic, virtue, and discipline. Yet that choice made her an outsider, even as she grew in power. She felt it most keenly in her early days, as she walked among mortals for the first time. In the city of Athens, a city not yet hers, but restless, yearning for a protector, Athena saw her first glimpse of human contradiction. She observed how people praised wisdom but followed impulse. How they honored peace but prepared for war. And she noticed how women, though they nurtured civilization, were denied voice in its shaping. It stirred something in her. Not pity, for she was not a sentimental goddess, but a sense of responsibility. Could a goddess born of thought reshape the hearts of those born of flesh? Could balance be taught? Her first challenge came not from enemies, but from pride, the pride of gods, and the pride of mortals. It began with Poseidon, the sea god, who, like Athena, wished to claim Athens as his own. He struck the earth with his mighty trident and brought forth a spring of salt water, roaring and wild. "This is my gift to the people," he declared. The sea, rich with power, glory, and conquest. Athena watched silently, then stepped forward. With her hand, she touched the ground, and from it grew the first olive tree, green, humble, and nourishing. "This is my gift," she said. "Peace, wisdom, and lasting prosperity." The gods judged the contest. The people waited. Would they choose might or meaning? They chose Athena. And from that day, the city bore her name, Athens, the first great center of philosophy, democracy, and art. But the rivalry with Poseidon never truly faded. Nor did the whispers from other gods who questioned how a goddess of peace could wear armor. Some warned that a mind too sharp could cut more deeply than any blade. And Athena began to feel a crack inside, between the calm clarity she upheld, and the raw emotion she buried deep. She knew she must stay above the chaos, but how long could she walk that line? For even the purest intellect cannot escape the storms of pride, pain, and human error. The world would soon test her in a way that no contest or prophecy ever had. Not with a spear, but with a mirror. Though Athena was now the patron of a city, her true journey was only beginning. The olive tree she gifted to Athens rooted her in the mortal world, not as a distant goddess looking down from Olympus, but as a guardian force to understand humanity from the inside out. It was not enough to advise from above. She had to walk among the people. And what she found both fascinated and unsettled her. Athens grew quickly, in power, art, and ambition. But with growth came division. she watched philosophers debate truth, yet manipulate the poor with words. She saw warriors win battles, only to wage others for pride. She observed women confined to the home, despite their intelligence, creativity, and spiritual strength. And above all, she saw that the wisdom she embodied, reason, clarity, discipline, was often ignored until it was too late. It was then that she faced her divine test. Not from the battlefield, but from within, a test of judgment, mercy, and restraint. It began with a mortal woman, Arachne. Arachne was a gifted weaver, a young girl from Lydia whose tapestries could make even gods pause in admiration. Her skill was unmatched, her artistry divine, but so too was her pride. When praised, she did not thank Athena, whom many believed had blessed her hands. Instead, she laughed. "I owe nothing to the gods," she said. "My gift is my own. Let Athena herself come and try to best me." And so, Athena came. Disguised as an old woman, she warned Arachne gently, "Child, speak with care. The gods grant gifts not to be mocked, but to be honored." But Arachne only scoffed. "Let the goddess weave," she said, "and we shall see who deserves praise." Athena dropped her disguise and revealed her divine form, radiant, commanding, unshakably calm. The contest began. For hours, they worked. Athena wove a tapestry showing the gods in their glory, Zeus reigning with thunder, Apollo guiding the sun, Poseidon commanding the sea, and herself, birthing civilization through order and strategy. Arachne, bold and defiant, wove scenes of the gods' failures, Zeus deceiving mortals, Apollo punishing the innocent, Poseidon in a fit of rage. Her tapestry was flawless, daring, beautiful, and true. Athena stood still as she looked upon it. There was no denying Arachne's genius. But the girl had crossed a sacred line. Not for questioning the gods, for even Athena valued truth, but for doing so without humility, without heart. Arachne had turned her gift into a weapon. And so, in a rare moment of emotion, Athena made her choice. She touched Arachne gently on the forehead. "You shall weave forever," she said, "but not as a girl." In that moment, Arachne transformed, her arms becoming legs, her body shrinking, threads flowing from her belly. She became the first spider, forever spinning, forever weaving. Some say it was punishment. Others say it was mercy, for in her new form, Arachne escaped the weight of pride, and kept her gift for eternity. But Athena felt a shadow in her heart. Had she acted from wisdom, or wounded pride? The gods remained silent. The mortals whispered. And Athena began to understand that even a goddess of wisdom must wrestle with inner contradiction. It was not enough to be right. One must also be just. Not cold, but compassionate. And that truth would shape her for the trials ahead. Is this story simply fantasy, or a mirror to something inside all of us? The divine test had passed, but the greater trial, one that would shake her to the core, had not yet come. For even a goddess can be haunted, not by enemies, but by reflections. The trial of Arachne left Athena with an unease she could not explain, a sense that wisdom alone was not enough. That truth, when wielded without compassion, could harden into cruelty. But she had no time for rumination. The world was changing. The gods had grown restless. Their rivalry spilled onto the earth like thunder into rain. Mortals, once innocent and afraid, now mimicked divine ambition, building empires, waging wars, sculpting cities to rival Olympus itself. They prayed to Athena for victory, justice, and guidance. But too often, they only heard what they wanted to hear. It was in this tense time that Athena faced her most profound turning point, not a battle, but a judgment. A moral crucible that would not test her strength, but her soul. The case was tragic, as many human stories are. A woman named Medusa once served as a priestess in Athena's temple. She was beautiful, not only in form, but in spirit. Devoted, graceful, full of wonder. Her hair flowed like the sea, and her voice carried the softness of prayer. But her beauty became her curse. For one day, Poseidon, god of the sea and rival to Athena, entered the temple. He saw Medusa, desired her, and in a storm of violence and arrogance, he took her. There are many versions of what happened next, but one truth remains: the sacred temple was defiled, and Medusa, once devoted, lay broken and shamed. Athena arrived too late. The air still burned with Poseidon's presence. And before her stood Medusa, trembling, not with guilt, but with pain. What was a goddess to do? To punish Poseidon was unthinkable, not because he was innocent, but because the politics of Olympus were brutal and blind. Divine law protected the powerful. To confront him outright would ignite a war the heavens could not contain. So Athena turned to the only thing she could control: her temple, her symbols, her order. And she transformed Medusa. Some say it was punishment. Others say it was protection, a way to give Medusa power, so no man would ever touch her again. Her hair turned to snakes. Her eyes became portals of vengeance. Any who looked upon her would turn to stone. She became a monster, yes, but one born of injustice, not evil. And Athena felt the weight of that choice. She did not regret it, but she did not forget it either. The world saw a curse. Athena saw a shield. And that shield, bearing the image of Medusa's face, would one day be placed on her breastplate, known as the Aegis. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A symbol that even gods must reckon with the consequences of power. Years later, Perseus would come seeking Athena's guidance, hoping to slay Medusa. And she, knowing the cycle must be fulfilled, gave him the tools: a polished shield, a curved sword, a divine plan. Medusa's death was swift. But her story, and Athena's silent grief, echoed forever. Some say this tale warns us about desire. Others see it as a path to wisdom. What do you think? This was Athena's turning point. Not a war waged on fields, but a reckoning fought in the mind. She saw that wisdom was not always clean. That even righteous choices leave shadows. That justice, in a broken world, often demands compromise. She did not weep. She did not rage. She simply placed Medusa's image on her armor and carried it with her, forever close to the heart. From this moment on, Athena was no longer the untouched goddess of thought. She was something more, a guardian of broken truths, a strategist of moral complexity. A warrior not only in battle, but in spirit. And though many prayed to her for certainty, Athena had learned that wisdom does not always bring peace. Sometimes, it brings the strength to endure contradiction, and to keep walking through it with grace. Athena had faced gods, mortals, rivals, and regrets. She had woven peace and drawn the sword. She had blessed cities and turned women into legends. But her greatest transformation would not come in victory, or punishment, or even justice. It would come through sacrifice, not of others, but of herself. As Athens grew, so did its enemies. Sparta, Thebes, Persia, all vied for control of the land, of ideas, of legacy. War loomed, not only on fields, but in hearts. And once again, mortals turned to Athena. "Guide us," they pleaded. "Give us triumph." She heard their prayers. But she also saw their hearts. They wanted not just protection, but dominance. They no longer fought for balance, but for pride. And so, Athena did what no other god dared do: she withheld her blessing. When war came, as it did in the great Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, Athena remained silent. This was not indifference. It was anguish. She had given the olive tree, the gift of reason and peace. And now, her people sharpened axes from its branches. In Olympus, the gods debated. Why does she not intervene? Why stay silent? But Athena knew, wisdom is not in controlling others. It is in letting them choose, even when they choose ruin. As Athens crumbled under plague, betrayal, and civil unrest, Athena descended, cloaked and unseen. She walked the streets in mortal form, hoping to find a spark of the greatness she once planted. She saw the sick lying in alleys, the hungry stealing bread, philosophers muttering to themselves as their students fled the city. She heard the cries of women, once silenced, rising in resistance. And she felt something shift inside. Not despair. Not rage. But a quiet knowing. Perhaps the age of gods was fading. Perhaps the age of men, with all its blood and beauty, must rise without divine instruction. She returned to the Acropolis one final time and stood before her statue, the towering figure of Athena Parthenos, carved in gold and ivory. Spear in hand, shield gleaming, calm eyes watching all. And there, she did something no one expected. She laid down her spear. Not in defeat, but in transformation. Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, chose to become something more, a spirit of enduring guidance, a presence etched not into battlefields, but into memory, law, and thought. She would no longer direct the hands of mortals. Instead, she would live within their highest ideals: justice, strategy, innovation, courage tempered by care. And that was her final victory. Not a victory over enemies, but over ego. Not a conquest of land, but of the self. Because what Athena understood, in a way few gods ever did, is that the greatest power is the ability to step back, and trust that the seeds you planted will one day bloom. The Parthenon stood for centuries, her image watching over artists, lawmakers, poets, rebels. And even when the temple fell into ruin, Athena did not vanish. She became an idea, and ideas do not die. She became the whisper in a statesman's heart before a fair law is written. She became the breath of a woman who dares to lead in a world of silence. She became the courage of a soldier who chooses restraint over wrath. She became the wisdom that waits, not to command, but to inspire. And so, her transformation was complete. From deity to legacy. Time passed, as it always does, through war, through silence, through rebirth. Athens would fall and rise again. Empires would come and go: Macedon, Rome, Byzantium. Marble would crack, gold would be stolen, temples would burn. But still, somehow, Athena remained. Not as a figure to be worshipped in ritual, but as a symbol to be carried, in law, in art, in thought. Her name lived on the lips of philosophers like Socrates and Plato, who honored reason above impulse. Her spirit echoed in the courts, where democracy, imperfect, yet revolutionary, took root in her city. Even as the myths faded into legend, and the gods became stories, Athena's presence was different. She did not demand worship. She inspired respect. It is no coincidence that when later generations sought to revive the wisdom of the ancient world, they turned again to her image. During the Renaissance, her likeness returned in paintings, sculpture, and poetry, not as a distant goddess, but as a human ideal. Artists saw in her the marriage of clarity and courage. Statesmen saw in her the hope of enlightened rule. Women saw in her a form of strength that needed no permission. The olive branch, once given to a young city, became a universal symbol of peace. The owl, her sacred creature, flew far beyond Greece, perched on coins, crests, and books, whispering a vision in the darkness. And today, in cities around the world, her statues still stand. But her true legacy isn't in the stone. It's in the questions she left us. How do we lead with wisdom rather than force? How do we hold power without losing compassion? How do we stay sharp without growing cold? Athena never claimed to have all the answers. Even in myth, she was not perfect. She struggled, misjudged, hesitated. But in every choice she made, she tried to serve a higher truth, one not based in conquest, but in balance. She reminds us that being strong is not about shouting loudest or striking first. It's about knowing when to speak, when to wait, when to act, and when to forgive. Even today, when courts debate justice, when citizens rise to protect democracy, when young minds question the world they inherit, Athena walks quietly beside them, not as a goddess to be obeyed, but as a presence to be remembered. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy of all. Not to be seen, but to be lived. Athena's story, like the olive tree she once planted, continues to grow, rooted deep in myth, but reaching towards something eternal. On the surface, she is a goddess, armored, wise, born from the mind of Zeus. But peel back the symbols, and she becomes something more intimate, more human. She is the part of us that seeks clarity in chaos. The voice that asks not just what should I do, but what is right. In a world of noise, she is the silence that thinks before it speaks. In a time of quick anger, she is the pause that considers. And in moments of crisis, she is the reminder that true strength lies in understanding, not domination. Her myths speak to timeless conflicts, pride and humility, justice and revenge, power and wisdom. Whether facing the arrogance of Arachne, the tragedy of Medusa, or the fall of her own beloved city, Athena responds not with blind rage, but with calculated grace, even when that grace bears pain. That is perhaps her greatest teaching, that wisdom is not always comfortable. It does not always feel good or make others applaud. But it endures. It heals. It preserves what matters most. And her symbols? They, too, are layered in meaning. The owl, for example, not just a bird of the night, but a creature that sees in darkness, asking us to look deeper, to question beyond appearances. The shield bearing Medusa's head, not a sign of cruelty, but a reminder that power must be tempered by reflection, and that even terror can be transformed into protection. The olive branch, so simple, yet so profound, teaches us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the choice to seek harmony even when war is possible. In many ways, Athena was never meant to be a goddess frozen in marble. She is a guide, a presence behind every thoughtful decision, every quiet act of courage, every moment someone chooses insight over impulse. She lives not in temples, but in questions. What deeper message or truth do you see in this myth? To walk with Athena is to walk the middle path, between mind and heart, strength and gentleness, action and restraint. It is not easy. But it is noble. And it may just be the path the world needs most today. This legend may be ancient, but its message lives on. Athena, born from thought, shaped by conflict, tempered by mercy, reminds us that true wisdom is not abstract. It's personal. It's moral. It's alive. Her story isn't just the tale of a goddess, it's a mirror, reflecting the choices we face every day. Will we rush to judgment, or pause to understand? Will we fight for glory, or build for peace? Will we wield our talents for praise, or for purpose? What part of this story stayed with you the most, and why? Take a moment to reflect. Do you see Athena in your own life, perhaps in a decision you must make, in the strength of someone you admire, or in the quiet resilience you didn't know you had? If this story stirred something in you, we invite you to share it. Leave a comment, not just with your thoughts, but with your questions. What would you ask Athena if she stood before you now? And if this legend inspired you, consider passing it on. Share it with someone who walks their own path between strength and wisdom. Subscribe to WSE Legendary Lives and continue this journey with us through myths that do more than entertain. They guide. They challenge. They remind us who we can become. Until next time, may your heart stay open and your spirit curious. Farewell for now, and remember, every legend carries a seed of truth.